Welcome back, everybody. Got a pretty good workout lined up for today. We're going to do some chest, back, and arms. I'll be using some lever arms in this workout, and unless you have those in your home gym, look for this exact same movement on equipment you find in your gym. For example, these lever arms in the flat bench position, attempt to duplicate a machine that you have in the gym, except you'll be setting upright. And while these lever arms do a pretty good job at approximating that movement you'll find in the gym equipment is always superior. But I use what I have available, and this seems to work pretty good for me. Anyway, on with the workout. In this workout, I ended up going quite a bit heavier than I normally go. I guess all this work that I've put in for the last 2.5 months have finally paid off. I'm not really pushing weight for strength, but it does come with the territory. As in, it takes more and more weight to get me to where I need to be each workout. And where I need to be is good and sore 2 days after I work out. It does take a lot more effort now. And that's just fine by me. This is not a sprint, this is a marathon. This is a long-term goal type of thing. And if you all have been following along and doing these workouts from the first one all the way up till now, I'm hoping you guys are seeing muscle size increase and at the very least strength gains, because I have been. I hope you have been too. And even if you haven't, just hang in there. You will. Just gotta keep pushing. This type of training is worth it in the long run, trust me. Right here I noticed I wasn't going to get my last 4 reps, so I went ahead and stripped off the plate on either side and keep on keeping on. I'm a stickler for performing the number of reps I prescribe in my workout. Won't settle for less. When I create these workouts, I create them several days in advance. They're built around how I felt after the last workout. And so after my last workout, I felt like I can go a lot heavier on the next one, which is this one. And I could do 2 exercises, 1 incline and 1 flat. And I could do 5 sets for each exercise. And that should pretty much be about it. And as it turns out, after this workout, yeah, that was exactly what my chest needed. And I could have threw in a finisher like cable flies or dumbbell flies, but no, after these 10 sets, my chest was pretty much cooked. That's a concept you're going to pick up as you move along, is to be instinctive in your training. Your body will be your guide as you move from week to week and month to month. Heck, at this point, you might be further along than I am and might need to modify these designed workouts to fit your needs. Maybe add a couple of reps or even a couple of sets to get to where you need to be. For me, these workouts are exactly what I'm doing, set for set and rep for rep. And you could do those too, or they could just be a blueprint or a template, and you could just go ahead and modify them however you want. And I'd strongly recommend you do exactly that. started doing these a little while back. These are definitely one of my favorite exercises now. The lever arms lock you into perfect form and give you a nice stretch on the bottom of the movement. I could just as easily use dumbbells, but I do really like how this one feels. haven't done these in a really long time, but I was pretty surprised at just how good these felt. Definitely going to be adding these into my workouts more often. I probably should have described it a little bit better on the workout that I posted in the front of this video. Curl bar curl slow rep. What I mean specifically is the eccentric part of this movement, or the lowering of the bar. Pretty much just fight the weight on the way down. I don't know what compelled me to add weights to this exercise, but oh man, did it beat me up. That'll do it for this workout. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.